We're live.
Oh, man. We're live. We did it.
At the
Oh,
buzzer.
Jesus.
Justin, you're joining me today.
I am here for the day. I'm here for 40 minutes. And then I have to go do my actual job that actually pays me. So let's get into it. Let's just do it, man. I don't know how these work. So you tell me what you do every day.
Yeah, so essentially, I hit live and then people join and then I wait. I just kind of BS some stuff until people start asking questions. So this is kind of where we're at.
Okay. So ask some questions. We're at that point now.
John says that he's glad that these are going to be weekly. They are going to be weekly for the foreseeable future. Why is this? Can I bubble it? There we go.
That's better.
The layout.
Good look to it.
Yep. So for the foreseeable future, I see this as weekly. Whether or not you're actually involved, you haven't been. This is your first time in 3 weeks.
Yeah, it'll be.
But
sporadic.
I'll be here, especially throughout as we get into August and the actual NFL season, probably through the entire season.
Yeah,
and then maybe January, February, we'll take a little break because not really much is going on, and then rookie season, we'll be right back into it. You know,
I think that makes sense. I mean, yeah, again, my goal is to join as much as I can, but I don't do this full time, whereas you do.
Well, maybe you should.
That is a Betsperts question. That's not a me question.
Toronto Dave is in the chat as well too, and we got Skylar. Skylar's in here. Skylar is asking in a 12-team, one quarterback, half PPR, would you rather have Saquon and Rashad Penny or Christian Watson and Wan'Dale Robinson in a mid to late first?
Are you competing this year? Are you trying? Are you an actual competitive team? I think that's important context because in a vacuum, I don't really know. I don't really know. This is a fair trade. I think it's a fair trade either way. It just depends where your team. Yeah, if you're competing, give me Saquon then. I think that's the best bet. He should have a monster workload once again. We know he is good. Rashad Penny should step into a notable role, right? Low end RB2 is in the range of outcomes. So I think give me the running backs.
Yeah, that's essentially how I see it. Like Penny and Wan'Dale, I feel like you can kind of cross out. I would lean the running back at that point just because I think that Penny's going to give you more usable weeks than Wan'Dale will this year. And as long as Penny's healthy, I feel like you're more confident in starting him than Wan'Dale Robinson. And so cross them off, but give an edge to Rashad Penny. So this is Watson in a mid to late first. If that's your first, you're competing. Ideally, it's 112. So sending, the 110 to 112 and Christian Watson for Saquon in a competitive window, I think that absolutely makes sense. I'd take Saquon there.
Yeah, also, just side note before we get to another comment, I am selling Wan'Dale in Dynasty off the ACL with it's going to be another down year. He's going to continue to lose value, and most likely they get a real wide receiver one or some kind of upgrade next year in 2024. I'm out on Wan'Dale, which hurts me because he checked a lot of boxes and then just immediately got hurt.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. I wonder if he follows the Rondale Moore career arc.
I was out on Rondale hard his entire career, so he's trending that way.
I'm back into Rondale for this season, so it's
pass.
We'll pass. We got a super chat, so I'm gonna skip right to that because Cameron here has dropped us $5. So Cameron, thank you so much for being here, for super chatting. So let's dive into this one. In a 12-team super flex, start 10 PPR, 1.5 tight end premium. If you had to choose between sending away 224 firsts for Kelsey or Waddle and Swift for Andrews and McLaurin, which one would you do? I remember talking about this with him.
Is it bad? I want the two.
Good.
I want the 2 firsts over Kelsey, I think. I think I love Travis Kelsey, but if I can get 2 firsts for him in next year's projected class, I think that's the right price to sell. And then Waddle or Swift for Andrews McLaurin. Where do you go with that one? That's tough. That's really tough.
Yeah. So I remember talking with him in the comments on this for the tight end trade show video that was so aptly I guess dropped for Cameron specifically. Of these two trades, I think I would rather send the 2 first for Travis Kelce. I told him, I said, if you could do a first and some other player who's worth a first, I think that's better. And then just keep one of the first. But he said that he's gone through basically the entire gamut of options for Travis Kelce. And a lot of the other tight ends are really, really expensive, as we see here with the Andrews one, where I would take Waddle and Swift over Andrews and McLaurin.
So would I. I think that's where I lean.
Yeah. So
giving
of
up
these
2
two
first for Kelce is tough, though. I think that's like the guy that's getting those 2 first. Like he rode the Kelce wave, and the wave should continue for at least another year or two. But to still be able to cash out with 2 first, like I'm trying to get a single first for Travis Kelce in most leagues, and people are not biting. So 2 first feels pricey for Travis Kelce,
especially whenever he's estimating they're both mid-ish. And if you're talking in a super flex leagues, one of those first is going to be Brock Bowers. Like you just turned Kelce into Brock Bowers and, Raheem Sanders. Like that could be ridiculous from a dynasty standpoint in a year or two.
Brock Bowers is the only player that has the potential to actually be the tight end 1 in dynasty outside of outside of Kyle Pitts over the next 3 seasons. He's the only other player that I think that will have that kind of steam in terms of value. So if you can flip Kelce for Bowers and Raheem Sanders or whoever else that is, that's an absurd deal.
Cameron, I'm wondering if your options instead of all this, can you just stream tight end, go get Tyler Higbee, go get Mike Gesicki, go get Gerald Everett, just all 3 of those guys, and just try to Frankenstein your way through the season. If I remember correctly, he's super competitive. He's in this win now window right now, and his tight end position is just kind of horrible. So he's like, well, I can just push for an elite tight end, and boom, we're in.
Yeah, it's I can't give up 2 first for Kelce, not right now.
Yeah, John said it. You're gonna feel awful if you send the 104 and another first for Travis Kelce. I think the only way you don't is you have to win. That's the only way you don't just totally feel terrible is you have to win the championship. If you lose and it was the 104 and the 109, oh my goodness.
Gut punch.
Yeah. James out here with another super chat. James, thank you so much.
Good way to get to us.
Yeah, we skip over every other question for these super chats. But definitely don't feel like you have to. We should have plenty of time to get through most, if not all of these. But he's asking, in a start 10, would you send a 24 first over to obtain Quentin Johnston, 12-team half PPR Superflex, start 10? His current wide receivers are Pittman, Judy, Deontay, Mike Williams, and Godwin.
I'm keeping the 24 first. I am also lower on Quentin Johnston. I'm not fully sold that he is, the next dude at wide receiver. Situation's immaculate, but there were a lot of question marks with him obviously coming out. Addison and I were both lower on him, I think, than consensus. So I'm keeping the 2024 first, unless, like you said, it's 110, and then you have a title in the bag. But with that wide receiver group, it's going to be tough to win a title. So if it's yours, it's probably mid. I'm keeping the first.
I would also keep the first. I mean, I think you can make the argument that, well, if you're just going to keep the first to take a wide receiver next year's wide receiver class is not, after Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka, there's some.
You got Xavier Worthy. There's some guys.
There's guys who, but they could be Kayshon Boutte and then, have a terrible third season and just not really be what we thought. Or same with Troy Franklin and a couple of the other guys that are interesting now, but might not be in a year from now.
Yep. Agreed.
To where Johnston might end up being, well, if he was in this class, he's wide receiver 3 easily. But there's still other pieces that I like in next year's class in a super flex league. That the running back position is fantastic. We just talked about Brock Bowers. There could be potentially, 2, 3, 4 quarterbacks that we're also really interested in. So I think that there's going to be a solid, probably 7 or 8 picks, just kind of like how there was this year of like really, really good to elite prospects that you're going to want all those guys over Quentin Johnston. So if that first falls within that range, I think you're going to be much happier to have that first.
Agreed. If it was it different if it's Jordan Addison? For me, it is. I'm taking Jordan Addison.
Probably.
And then obviously we're doing it for JSN. But
yeah,
I think I'm doing it for Addison, but I'm not doing it for Johnston.
Yeah. Oh, Cameron said that he has Gerald Everett and Irv Smith already. Yeah, I'd go for Higbee. I'm really big on Gesicki as well too.
Hayden Hurst, you can throw out there. He's a volume play. Like there's ways you can piecemeal it and ultimately be fine. Go get like Greg Dulcich. That's my breakout tight end for the year. It's Dulcich.
And then Higbee. Because Higbee's been like top 6 for the past 2 years and nobody cares. And now he's going to be the second target on the team behind Cooper Kupp, and nobody cares.
Couldn't care less.
All right, let me scroll back up here. John's killing it in the chat. He answers questions and he's very knowledgeable. So if you don't get an answer from us immediately, John will give you the answer.
Just say fully endorse John giving
and
answers.
then we'll get to it. Yep, John is a mod. So Brandon asks, are we worried about Breece Hall's health if they do sign Dalvin Cook? Or is it just, good? They want more good players on their team because you can never have too many good players and they're just going to be really good together.
Aaron Rodgers is entering his LeBron James era where he's just going to bring along a bunch of old vets that are solid players but not great, and it's going to be at the expense of younger guys. That's essentially what this equates to, right? They bring in Allen Lazard. They bring in Mecole Hardman. They bring in all these players that aren't that great. But Rodgers wanted them, so they went out and got him. Randall Cobb. That's what's going to happen with Dalvin Cook. Breece Hall is better than Dalvin Cook by a wide margin at this point in their careers. And maybe this just means they bring Breece Hall along slowly to start the year. But ultimately, for Dynasty, I'm looking beyond just one season. So I'm good with Breece. I think he's ultimately fine and is the RB1 in this backfield by the end of the year.
Yeah, from a Dynasty perspective, you can I think you can argue that Dalvin Cook signing there would be better for Breece Hall. Like you said, that they would bring Breece along slowly. Like they don't have to feel the need to, put him out there, give him 18 touches a game, risk him, in getting injured again because he's overcompensating on his other leg. And, we saw that Dalvin Cook actually the year after his ACL injury missed like 6 or 7 games with another injury. Saquon Barkley got hurt again. He stepped on a dude's foot, but he got hurt again after the ACL injury. If that means that Breece Hall is worked in slower, thus making sure that he is healthier, stronger, more confident in his ability, and then that just means that his overall career is just a lot better, then that's going to be better from a Dynasty perspective. You're probably just going to have to toss out September and October, and you might have, an RB3 with RB2 weeks, and you're just going to have to wait a little bit for the RB1, stuff to come on.
He could still be an RB1 on the year. He's still that is in his range of outcomes. He's going to drop just from a redraft standpoint. He's going to drop if they sign Dalvin Cook and be like a back end RB2 top 20 guy, and that's going to be a good value. I'm going to be excited to take him still.
Yeah, he could have a Tony Pollard season. Tony Pollard didn't do a lot the first half of the season with Ezekiel Elliott, and then they both basically got the same workload from like week 9 on. But Tony Pollard was just so much better, so much more explosive. That could be the exact, and we saw Breece already do that. Like he didn't have a massive workload to start last year, and in that 7-game stretch, he was never worse than top RB24. Even in the week that he left injured, he had already had like 70 yards and a touchdown.
He's so good. He's so unbelievably talented. It's amazing.
He's very good. So yeah, I'm not so much worried about it for James Cook. It just might suck in the early month or so. Lounging Bears asking if we would prefer Olave or Tyreek in a half PPR with a competing team.
Tyreek. Next.
Bam.
He could be the wide receiver 1. Chris Olave does not have that, at least right now, with Derek Carr. So Tyreek Hill is, again, he's a top 2 or 3 pick in a redraft. And that's usually, if you're looking like from a competing standpoint for guys that aren't over the hill, redraft ADP is really, really useful.
Yeah. Tyreek. I'll take Tyreek.
Yeah.
John, so his question, in a startup, 12 team zero flex, 1 PPR for wide receivers, 1.5 PPR for running backs, and 2 PPR for tight ends. Start 10. I need a nap just from reading that.
This is Chinese to me. I'm sorry. There's so many numbers.
Traded the 305 and a 13 and okay, so traded the 305 for a 5th, 7th, and 8th round and a 24 second. Holy crap. And then traded back from the 5th round to a 7th round and a 24 first. Did you move back too far? Digesting numbers. Hold on.
So gut feeling is no, because you added an additional 1st, an additional 2nd, and you now have get rid of the 13th and the 19th. Those are dart throws. Don't really care. So you picked up 2 7ths, an 8th, a 2024 2nd, and a 2024 1st for the 3rd round pick. That's a good trade. Like that gives you a lot of bullets. There's a lot of upside in, rounds 6 to 8. That is like the end of where I think things start getting gross. So I like that. I think you get a lot of bullets. I'm a big believer in trading back consistently in startups and just giving yourself as many chances as you can to find players in a startup early or in a dynasty league. So I think this strategy is perfect, and you get the extra 1st.
So to put names based on ADP, you're looking at in that 305 range, you're looking at quarterbacks like Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Tyreek might be in that range, Breece Hall, Mark Andrews, Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon, T. Higgins. Those are the guys that are probably going to be in that range at 305. You traded one of them away for 2 7ths, which we're down in here. 12 times 7 is 84.
I saw you actively thinking.
Yeah, down in the 7th round range, you're looking at Brandon Ayuk, Deontay Johnson, Derek Carr, and Matthew Stafford are there at quarterback. Michael Pittman, Calvin Ridley, Quentin Johnston, Dallas Goedert, Dalton Kincaid, Aaron Jones, and Dameon Pierce for the running back. So you got 2 of them, another 8th round pick that maybe one of them falls, or maybe you get like Zay Flowers or Hollywood or somebody like that, and a 1st and 2nd.
Yeah, love it.
Bam.
It gives you a lot of depth, a lot of bullets, a lot of chances to that's how you build a super team. Is you have to take risky trades, because if it was easy, you know what I mean. Like people wouldn't be being terrible at Dynasty if it was super easy to do. So you have to make risky moves. I think this is fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you can always package them back up if you want to as well.
Yep.
Scrolling. How would you value tight ends in a 1.5 tight end premium scoring in a half PPR league? So tight ends get an additional point than running backs and wide receivers, I would assume by the phrasing of this.
The top guys are elite, like elite, like the Travis Kelce's, the Mark Andrews, Hawkinson's, Addison. You won't say it, but Kyle Pitts, like the
Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, you get it. Honestly, also Tyler Higbee. How many targets he's going to see?
He's going to have like 70 receptions.
He had a 20% target share last year. He was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like Gardolchich. No, they bump up a round or 2 in ADP.
Honestly, a lot of them might bump up more than that, because this is equivalent to a 2 tight end premium, 2 PPRs for tight ends if everybody else has just 1 PPR. And I've played in a league like that, and Travis Kelce just averages like 30 points a game. Like it's
he's like the 101. He's the one. He's basically the 101.
So, and the ability to flex tight ends just becomes so much greater. The ability to just play like random dudes who, if they catch 3 passes, that's 6 points right there, plus the yardage that you're getting from them. So maybe they go 3 for 40. And that's just their stat line. That's 10 points, essentially. Well, in this format, I guess it's, that was in the 2 PPR. But in this format, that's still like 8 points.
It's 9.5 or 8.5. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So, and that's going to be a lot more than, what a random wide receiver 3 or 4 is going to do. So it's just, all the tight ends become way more valuable, especially at the top. But even the low end guys, that if they just catch a couple receptions, that they are a lot more interesting.
I'm with you.
Where are we at? John got Higbee for a 4th and Brenton Strange.
Brenton Strange, that pick didn't make sense in April, and it doesn't make sense now.
Hey, just don't say anything bad about him, all right? This is a pro Penn State household.
Him and Parker Washington are going to be so good.
There we go. And don't forget about Sean Clifford with Aaron Rodgers' locker.
I forgot he existed. He was at Penn State for like 8 years, so that doesn't.
It might have been 9, but yeah.
Him and McSorley were the same exact person. Like they were just carving. McSorley left, and he was Leon Sandcastle. Like it was that level of. He just came back as freaking Sean Clifford.
Let me skip one question real quick just to transition this. Have you scouted Judkins or Singleton at all? Thoughts on how they project out in 2025? So, as a Penn State alum and fan, Nick Singleton is really freaking good.
He's insane. Good. Also, Judkins is like your prototypical workhorse. Judkins is also going to be very, very good. That running back class already looks, immaculate. Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, like that. Like this looks like.
Is Trey Benson in there too? Benson in there too? Or is he
I think Benson can. I think Benson can come out this year.
Can he? Okay, yeah,
2024.
So if he doesn't, for whatever reason, imagine. No, it's going to be a great class.
Yeah, this feels like 2018, where it was Saquon and Nick Chubb. And
who's the? Oh no, there's a dude out in Georgia, Robinson, whose name escapes me, but he's a freak of nature, and I cannot remember his name right now.
Somebody in the comments will happen now.
I'm looking it up.
Singleton is going to be the RB21 in 2025. See, this is why
Branson Robinson. Branson Robinson is the name. He is going to be a monster.
Yeah. And I'm sure Alabama probably has a dude.
Of course. They just spawn dudes.
Done.
Yeah, both have a dude.
But both these guys are going to be fantastic. I'm so excited for 2025, like already. Yeah. Like I'm super excited for the 2024 class, but these two guys just highlight 2025 so much that I'm so ready for it.
We're doing the thing already where it's like, you think this year's class is good? Wait till next year. We're 2 years down the road.
Have you seen the freshmen that have come in this year for the 2026 class, dude?
Have you noticed the 8th graders recently? They are killing it.
Jack, bro. I mean,
we're really
all right. Back to Nick. Sorry, I skipped over you just so we could have that nice transition for Penn State. But is Javonte a buy in Dynasty with the reports that he's having a good recovery? How do you feel about Javonte?
Okay, this is where I am not a doctor, but I still have concerns long term about his actual health. Like being cleared for contact and being fully healthy are not the same thing. So everything we've read up to this point, prior to camp, was basically his knee was a bag of bones. Like it was shredded. And now he's suddenly fully healthy. And I don't know. I'm probably not buying Javonte at all. I think the discount's gone also with that report. So you lose a lot of the appeal there. I'm not going back in on Javonte yet.
Yeah, it's because I feel like you're right with the fact that the discount seems to have disappeared because, we're getting these puff pieces that he looks great and we're seeing some clips. And he's talking about how he's just so excited to just lower his shoulder into a defender again. If that discount is still there, then I would be buying. Like, for example, July ADP that just came out a couple weeks ago, the three running backs actually that went right behind Javonte Williams in ADP are Joe Mixon, Miles Sanders, Dameon Pierce. If you're telling me I can add something small to all three of them, any of those three, and just go get Javonte, even if it's just like you're a competing team, it's your second round pick in 2024, add that to Mixon or Sanders and just go get Javonte, I'm all for doing that. I don't think that you can do that anymore, though, because of this stuff that's starting to come out. And so it really does feel like Javonte is now getting pushed up, to where we already feel about like J.K. Dobbins to Najee Harris's level, kind of. So I don't know. I think at this point, if you haven't bought him already, I wouldn't be trying to buy him now until, the news comes back crashing back down to earth, essentially, like the J.K. Dobbins stuff last year.
And if you bought him, I mean, again, like those are the risky moves, but they can pay off. I wasn't doing it because like the injury scared me off, and I'm gonna stay scared off because I missed the window. Like there was a clear window to buy him after basically everything said, right? He doesn't have a knee anymore. Like that was the time to go and buy him. You had to have been a psychopath to do it, but it's paying off if you did it. So those are the things in Dynasty where like I missed the window, so I'm not gonna reverse course now and try to get in knowing he was way cheaper literally 2 weeks ago.
Right. Exactly. Everybody just answers questions in here, and I love it. But it also makes it harder for me to find questions.
I mean, you pull any question up there. You got it. Just pick one.
If Tua or Kyler are available in round 3 of a Superflex startup, and you already have 2 quarterbacks, would you take them just for value's sake over T. Higgins or any other positional players?
No, I'm not taking – I don't love the strategy of taking players with the hope of trading them because you're going to take Tua or Kyler and then hope you can get somebody like T. Higgins for him. So just take T. Higgins. Like that's that's the route this ends up. And you hope somebody has a quarterback that gets hurt and they're competing and they want to buy your QB3. That doesn't always happen, right? Sometimes people they lose a quarterback and their team sucks anyways, so they commit to a tank and then there's no buy window. I'm never drafting with the intention of trading like immediately.
Yeah. I would be interested in doing it if you're able to, prior to making the pick, or you feel really, really confident in being able to trade one of your 2 quarterbacks that you already taken. Like if you've already taken, we'll just say Lamar Jackson, and you're able to trade him away for AJ Brown or CeeDee Lamb or somebody like that, and then you still have another quarterback, and then you just drafted Tua, then I think that would be the way that you could go. But I feel the same way. Like I tried the QBX strategy in a startup last year where I took Lamar, I traded up for somebody else. I forget who it was. And then in the second round, Dak fell to me in like the late second. And I'm just like, well, I have to take Dak, right? Like somebody's going to want a quarterback and then they're going to trade for him. And fast forward a year and all 3 of those quarterbacks are still on my roster and I couldn't move any of them because the best offer I'm getting is like Derek Carr in a second for one of them. And I'm just like, no, like I can't move any of them.
So, yeah. And there is merit to drafting for value, but other players in that range are also a value, right? Are both of those players values? Yes. That doesn't mean T. Higgins in the third isn't a value. So it just depends. Like if you're there, turning it to redraft, every league, every home league on earth has the one guy that takes 3 quarterbacks. They take Jalen Hurts and then they take Dak and they take Watson. It's like, well, somebody has to trade for a quarterback. No, we don't. Like we don't have to do that. So a lot of times you get left holding the bag. I have a Dynasty league where I did this. It was a 1 QB league. I currently have Josh Allen, Justin Fields, and Trevor Lawrence. It's been 3 years. It's been 3 years. I cannot get rid of them. Or 2 years now, I guess. We're going into year 3. Nobody will trade for me. And it's driving me insane.
Yeah. Yep. It is annoying. John says that he would take Kyler in the third. If he were healthy, he would be going in the first. While I agree with that, I also know how people feel about Kyler.
His value is severely depressed. I traded for Kyler in a league, but knowing damn well, like I have to hold him because I'm not getting returns on him for at least a year, if not more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Eric's got an interesting question. One player that you want to sell before the 2023 season starts, and then another player that you want to buy before the season starts because it'll be too late.
All right. I got 2 names in mind.
Go for it.
One, I want to sell Dameon Pierce. I want Dameon Pierce off any roster I have him. Dameon Pierce is a pure volume play. Like, he is a volume-based player, and he was last year as well, right? He was 6th in opportunity share. That led to an RB21 finish in points per game. And that was alongside Rex Burkhead, the ghost of Marlon Mack, and whoever else was there. Now you bring in Devin Singletary, who at least last year graded out as a very good pass blocker, has seen a roughly 8 to 10% target share each of the last couple of seasons. He's a solid runner, very similar peripherals to Dameon Pierce. If Dameon Pierce starts to lose work, right, and he goes down to it's a 60-40 split, well, Dameon Pierce is going to struggle. It's just the nature of it. And yes, CJ Stroud is an upgrade over Davis Mills, but it's still a rookie-led offense with a rookie head coach. There are a lot of concerns around Dameon Pierce. And he's being drafted as RB21, you said, which is fine. I don't have any issue with that price. But I don't know if it gets much higher after the season. So if I can sell him what I perceive as borderline peak value, I'm going to pull the cord.
Who's your buy?
Justin Herbert. I am buying so much Justin Herbert. It is, the way that offense is going to open up with Kellen Moore, he's a year removed, right, from 5,000 plus yards, 30-something touchdowns. He's going to return back to that. And again, if you saw the short we literally put, I'm just repeating this. He has the potential and the upside to finish as the overall QB1. That is in the range of outcomes. I think a year from now, he is viewed in a similar tier to Josh Allen and those guys. I think that's where he's headed. So I am buying Herbert knowing he's already expensive, but I think the value continues to creep upward.
So I love both of those. Absolutely in agreement with both of them. My sell before the season starts is George Kittle, and I've been editing videos for 4 for 4, and they are so anti George Kittle. I did one for Marco, and I did one for Daigle. They both of them just completely destroyed George Kittle in my head.
Marco has hated George Kittle for 3 years. He's my brother. He tells me this constantly. So,
but their arguments are sound, and I'm starting to understand. Because I saw the same thing where I was just he scored 11 touchdowns last year on 60 receptions. That in and of itself, unsustainable. Yeah. You look at where he was at in terms of basically prior to week 13 or 14, from that whole entire season up to that week, he was the tight end 8 in scoring. And then from the last 4 weeks of the season, he scores 7 touchdowns in 4 games and was averaging 22 points per game, 8 more points per game than the tight end 2 over that entire stretch. Championship weeks. So obviously we love George Kittle because he probably won a lot of people fantasy championships because he scored 7 touchdowns in 4 weeks during fantasy championships. But then Daigle pointed out that, he saw that in the 6 games where Kittle, Debo, and Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey all were healthy in a Brock Purdy-led offense, that George Kittle was the 4th in target share out of all 4 of those guys. And it wasn't particularly close. Debo and Ayuk were pretty high. Christian McCaffrey's obviously going to get his. And then George Kittle was just sitting down there at 11% target share in those games. So it just feels like he has the name value. He has the production from last year. We remember him because he probably helped win you guys fantasy championships last year. And it just seems like he's propped up a little bit too high to where it's very easy to pivot off of him for another elite option or trade down to a Dallas Goedert or a Darren Waller if you're looking for a win now season this year and get something kind of significant on top of that to be able to do those 2 trade down moves. So he's the sell before the season for me. And then the buy is Christian Kirk because everybody's on top of Calvin Ridley. They just absolutely love Calvin Ridley. I posted a TikTok that I saw of him where comparing one of his routes versus Zay Jones. Ridley just looks so much better. And obviously Calvin Ridley's amazing. Yes. But we all love Calvin Ridley so much that it feels like we're forgetting that Christian Kirk is coming off of an 80 for 1,108 season. And Calvin Ridley is going to have no impact whatsoever on Christian Kirk's role in this offense and his target share on this offense. I just think that we're going to go through September with Christian Kirk being a mid to high end wide receiver 2. And we're going to be we should have remembered that Christian Kirk was really, really good last year. Yeah. And that Calvin Ridley has no bearing on how, he actually performs. because they don't play the same role.
So I think we both have put out videos like in the last 2 months or 3 months, whatever it is, buy Christian Kirk, because he's falling, and it's nothing to do with the talent of Christian Kirk, right? Like, this is the argument we make all the time with a lot of players is if they didn't do anything to have their value decrease, but they're still dropping in drafts, probably buy them. Like Devontae Smith was the exact example last year where he fell from like a top 15, top 20 wide receiver outside the top 30. Not because Smith had a bad rookie year. He had a fantastic rookie year, but because A.J. Brown came in. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the same thing here.
Tyreek and Waddle also did that a little bit too. Same
right, where like these guys are slipping, and it just doesn't make a ton of sense because they proved they were good. Their only reason to quote unquote fade them is competition has come in. Like I don't really get that.
Yeah,
good players earn targets. Doesn't matter what the competition is.
Especially in a better offense. If Trevor Lawrence throws the ball 600 times, there's no reason that Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk can't each combine for like 300 targets.
If they both finished top 20, wouldn't bat an eye. I fully expect it.
Yeah. I love Christian Kirk, especially at the discount that he's going at compared to Calvin Ridley. I love both of them, but Kirk is just so much more of a value because I wouldn't be surprised, like you said, if they're both top 20, if they're both just similarly producing at the like a DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. They both do the exact same thing.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. I was gonna put Kirk in my video of boring players to own, but I'll pivot. He was off my short list of names. Damn it.
Manny says he's contending and he traded Treylon Burks in the third for Davante Adams. Wow.
What? Who's doing that deal?
That's impressive.
That's a great trade.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. So, and then another Burks question. In a stacked one quarterback team where Burks is his wide receiver 6 or 7, would you trade Burks in a second for a first in 2024?
And a third, yeah. I'll reroll. That's a good reroll. Like players that don't have like, true breakout rookie seasons. Drake London, in terms of like target share. Drake London, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. Everybody else, I'm happy to flip them for another pick and like kind of re-roll my chances. I think that's fine.
Especially in an 8 team, you're guaranteed a top 8 pick, so
it is one QB, but still,
there's
more than 8 good players in that class.
Yeah. And Caleb Williams will be one of those 8, even in a one quarterback league. Because he's
Baker Mayfield went like 105 a couple years ago in my one QB leagues. I laughed so hard at that.
Lawrence was a top 7 pick in one quarterback league still.
Yeah.
So, and Caleb Williams will do that. Eric said he heard a Microsoft Outlook email ping.
I got mine on Do Not Disturb, but I think my email slipped through. Yeah, it's.
Oh no!
I'm avoiding responsibility for another like 7 minutes.
Speaking of Calvin Ridley, can we just take a minute to say that he is back from recovered Ridley Truther? His name keeps changing. First it was Ridley Truther, and then he got suspended and he was recovering Ridley Truther. But now Ridley's back, so he's recovered Ridley Truther.
Calvin Ridley is going to be so good. If he was such an obvious buy from the sense of the value was going to bounce back. Like if you could have bought him in January or whatever it was so painfully obvious that this is where the value was headed. Because the second he got back on the field, the second anybody watched him run, 2 rounds of ADP jump. Like you can go from getting a second to getting a first for him. Like it was inevitable. Keep that in mind with some of these, former elite players that end up missing a season. Like he wasn't even hurt. Like that's even better. He was suspended for the dumbest crap in the world. So like this is just so obvious that he was coming back. I'm so happy.
Yeah, for sure. Joe's in the chat, and Joe's a member of the YouTube channel. So be more like Joe. Subscribe and become a member if you are interested in bonus content, extra stuff from us. We have a Discord channel as well too. We're talking about starting a members only Dynasty League. There's been discussions. I'm very anti-sleeper, and it seems like that's the route we're going. So
we're going sleeper, baby.
But yeah, be more like Joe. Recovered Ridley Truther in a 12-team start 10 lineup, 0.5 points per first down, 2 tight end premium. Oh my goodness. Who realistically can you tier up from Watson in a 24 first 2? He's already tried it and declined on Amon-Ra, Diggs, and Tyreek. pending offer on Olave. Is Devontae Adams too borderline, or would you keep Christian Watson and a 24 first?
What about like Drake London and a pick back and a second back?
London in a second?
I think you could get that done. Like, they're not going that far apart in ADP. And in terms of safety, ceiling's very similar, but in terms of like who I think is a much safer prospect and much more likely to hit, Drake London is light years ahead of Christian Watson.
I'd be curious if you could.
I'm assuming it's Christian Watson, not Deshaun.
Yeah, because he's trying to tier up for a running or a wide receiver. Could you do Cooper Kupp? I mean, Diggs and Tyreek were already declined.
Yeah, but people are lower on Kupp. People are lower on Kupp. Coming off the injury, tied to Stafford, who might not have a neck by the end of the year. Like, people are lower. He's more volatile, but also he carries probably a higher ceiling than anybody in football.
Mm-hmm. I would just send an offer out for Kupp. I'd send an offer out for Jalen Waddle. I'd send one out for T. Higgins. Would you do Devonta Smith? I feel like Devonta Smith and DK Metcalf are the line where I might risk the ceiling of Christian Watson at the expense, like for not adding a first to go up and get them.
I think Smith and Higgins are the same as far as tier goes.
That's probably a good point.
Like, Smith is going to earn a higher target share, but there's going to be less passing volume, so they'll end up being the exact same.
Yeah. Maybe you can get it done for. I mean, maybe you can get a pick back on Higgins now and just ride Joe Burrow's going to be out for like 2 months of the season.
Oh, I sent out so many offers yesterday. I was like, guys, getting his leg amputated. Just gotta move now.
My one league where I have Carson Wentz stash is my like QB5. You know, I'm just
perfection.
All right, Justin, let's hit you with one last question before you got to bounce for like real work stuff or whatever that stupid thing is.
Talk to your people.
Got a Dynasty Superflex question for y'all. Should I trade away Trevor Lawrence and Isaiah Pacheco for Kyler Murray and either Breece Hall or Travis Etienne? His other quarterbacks are Burrow, Bryce Young, Love, Tannehill, and Trask.
Yeah, probably.
But you want Breece of the two, right?
Yes, yeah. Breece over Etienne, and I'm a diehard Travis Etienne fan. Breece over Etienne, and Kyler. There's no you're not getting Kyler Murray this year. You're getting Kyler Murray in 2024, which, as long as you're okay with that, that's a great trade. Because who was it, John, that said it earlier? Like, Kyler's a first if he's fully healthy. Mm-hmm. So that's a great trade, and it's going to look even better a year from now.
Yeah, I might not do it if it was Kyler and Etienne. I might just keep Trevor Lawrence at that point and just say, you know what, I'll just take the safety of Trevor Lawrence. I don't want to say the more known, because Kyler's very known in terms of what his production is. I bet people just forget what that production was.
Locked in top 8.
Right. But there's so much other stuff with Kyler that the community just hates. I mean, it's, the COD jokes, the contract whole thing that forced him to watch
He's
film.
This tall.
Yeah, he looks like Deuce Vaughn out there when he's running.
That's mean to Deuce Vaughn, I think.
But that clip is not doing him any justice, bro. You saw the clip of him?
He's so small. The number of I was really glad the Cowboys let my son get a carry in practice is great. He's tiny.
Yeah. So I don't think I would do Kyler and Etienne. I think I'd hold on to Trevor Lawrence for that still, just for the safety. And then, if it's Kyler and Breece Hall, I would trade Trevor Lawrence away for that.
Yeah. I agree. All right. I got to dip. I got to go do real work things.
That's so stupid.
My goal is to do this next week, so we'll see.
There you go. Bye, Justin.
Right, see you.
All right. Now the party begins when it's just me. Let's see. Mark, mid-tier team, consider tier down from Barkley to Henry and an early 24 first. If yes, tier down again from Henry to James Conner and James Cook. So if that's an early 24 first, I am taking that trade. Absolutely. And just going down and hopefully if that's like a top, 3 pick, top 4 pick, just in my head, I'm imagining trading Saquon Barkley away from Marvin Harrison Jr. and Derrick Henry, and that is absolutely insane. But that would need probably be the 1.01 in a one quarterback league. But still, I mean, if you just turn Barkley into Henry and Travion Henderson, if he works out, or Emeka Egbuka, any of those guys at the top of the list, if this is an early 24 first, I would do that. And then you're going to maintain production with Derrick Henry. And really just looking at running backs in a 1 year window anyway, I think that would naturally lead you to accepting that trade. Now, the second one, trading down from Henry to James Conner and James Cook, I feel like you're losing too much value there. You probably would need to add more on top of that. I'm not a huge James Cook guy. I love James Conner, but his value is really, really low to where I do think that you can get something kind of additional on top of that. You might be able to get like a 2025 first with all of that for Derrick Henry if someone's really, really desperate for an elite running back. But I would probably go for something like a wide receiver or a really good tight end, like a Dallas Goedert type. Try and see if you can add that on top to Connor and Cook. I don't know if that gets done. That's just how I'm viewing it with the James Cook stuff. Thoughts on Daniel Jones? I'm a big fan. You can get a good player late in the draft. I'm not a Daniel Jones fan. I made a video about why I don't like Daniel Jones for this year because he was a game manager last year. Is not good at all throwing the ball, I don't think. And I don't think his weapons, as upgraded as people think that the weapons are this year, I don't really think that they necessarily are. I'm also down on Darren Waller for this season too, mostly injury related. But if Darren Waller misses, a quarter to a half of the season this year because injuries continue to plague him, that's not going to help Daniel Jones. That's not going to be good for Darren Waller, obviously. To where the receivers after Darren Waller are Wan'Dale's coming off of an ACL. Darius Slayton is still fine. Sterling Shepard can't play more than 4 games, even though he's really good in the 4 games that he plays. They have Isaiah Hodgins, who I think is just a product of nobody else being there. I don't get the hype on Isaiah Hodgins at all. Jalen Hyatt was a wide receiver that Justin and I did not like coming out of college. So there's just Paris Campbell, another player who prior to last season had 3 years where he couldn't play more than 3 or 4 games. So there's just a lot of question marks in the entire thing that you're basically relying on the fact that Daniel Jones is going to rush for 800 yards again. That's essentially what you're relying on. And if he does that, he's going to be great. He's going to be a QB1 for sure. But that's basically it, because I don't know if he's going to throw for anything significantly more than 20 touchdowns. I don't know if he's going to throw for anything significantly more than 3,000 passing yards. Like, he's never really done that before in his career. His career high is 24, but that was, in 2019, 24 touchdowns. Last year he had 15 or 16 or whatever it was. I'm not a Daniel Jones fan. So that's how it goes. 2.07 or Gabe Davis in a 1 quarterback league. I'll take Gabe Davis over the 2.07 in a 1 quarterback league. He was just actually in a video of mine as well too, talking about why I think that 2023 could be the best season for Gabe Davis. Waddle or St. Brown, I will take Jalen Waddle for the explosiveness and the fact that his situation is more known, I think. Amon-Ra, what's he like with Jameson Williams back and healthy? What's he like with Jahmyr Gibbs, with Sam Laporta? There's the question marks of quarterback as well, too, of a post-Jared Goff life. Now, that could be better or it could be worse. Tua, you have question marks as well, too, with Jalen Waddle. But I'd rather take Jalen Waddle. And then JSN or Pollard, I will take Tony Pollard. But I really, really like JSN. Holy moly. $10 from Lounging Bear. Thank you so much for the $10 super chat. Why is Trevor Lawrence the ugly stepchild of the top tier of quarterbacks? Does he not have the same ceiling as everyone else if he continues to develop? The ugly stepchild. I think basically Justin hit this perfectly in his quarterback rankings video when he talked about Trevor Lawrence as his QB 6, I think it was. And the reason why he was behind, Burrow and Herbert, and of course the top 3, is that we haven't seen him do it consistently. Obviously with Justin Herbert, we've seen the 5,040 touchdown season just a couple seasons ago. We expect that to, get back to where he was at this year now with a Kellen Moore offense. With you add Quentin Johnson already to the weapons that he had with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler still there. Justin Herbert's already done it. He's a very proven asset. You would take Justin Herbert over Trevor Lawrence. Joe Burrow's the exact same way. We've seen it now 2 years in a row. He's tied to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins for the foreseeable future. You take Joe Burrow over Trevor Lawrence. It really is, I think, in my opinion, just the fact that we haven't seen it yet. There's a lot of hope. There's a lot of potential. But, sometimes that doesn't all pan out exactly how we want. Like Lawrence could have a really good season, be a top 10 quarterback, but it might just not meet our expectations. And he might stay as the QB 6 or 7 or 8. Also dependent on, if Deshaun Watson comes back to form and is really, really great in Cleveland, if Justin Fields take that next step, if Anthony Richardson really shows out, Kyler, could come back up into the conversation as well too. There's just a lot of really, really good quarterbacks that, Trevor Lawrence just seems like he's the guy with a lot of potential. Yes. But also we just haven't seen it yet. So if you're willing to wait a little bit in terms of quarterback value in a startup, or you're trying to trade for an elite quarterback and you're comparing prices essentially, and you're able to get Deshaun Watson or Tua or Justin Fields a little bit cheaper than you would Trevor Lawrence, I feel like that's the route most people will go for. Hopefully that answered. Yeah, he got a bad rap because of his first year with Urban Meyer as well too. But I feel like he broke a lot of those chains last year, especially over mainly the second half of the season. And now you had Calvin Ridley and all that kind of stuff too. But yeah, hopefully that answered your question. Thank you for the super chat as well. Thank you. Scroll back up here. Where was I? Even with Kyler hurt, will someone trade you their Kyler for Higgins? I personally don't think so. Yeah, this is. I get it. This is going back to the startup thing. I get it. So if you have Pierce, Singletary stack, should you move the stack to upgrade? Yeah, I would. I'm in full agreement with Justin. I don't like Dameon Pierce. People talk about, well, he looked so fantastic last year. He was on pace for 1,000 yards, whatever. And yeah, he was. He did look good. Except he averaged like 13 fantasy points a game, and that's like RB20. So you're essentially drafting him at his peak in dynasty drafts, in redraft drafts. And that's not even baking in any of the risk that if Houston were to improve, the fact that he's a day 3 running back, the timer is ticking on Dameon Pierce getting replaced. Now, it may not happen in 2024, but every single year from here on out, we're going to have off-season conversations of what if Dameon Pierce gets replaced. And that will always drive his value down. Every single offseason will drive his value down. So if he doesn't perform well or do all that kind of stuff, he's just not a running back that I want on my team when they're being valued this high as a plotting 2-down back with no receiving upside, that kind of stuff. I guess I can take my headphones off because I don't have to hear anybody now. Do your best to convince me that JSN isn't going to be a top 5 wide receiver this season. Not enough of the pie. Not enough target share in year 1. That's essentially it. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Well, I think the other thing that could affect that as well too is not even really just the JSN thing, but it's the Seattle thing, where they've drafted Zach Charbonnet now in the 2nd round, and it feels like they want to go back to just running the ball like 450 to 500 times, which might be very beneficial for both Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet if they're splitting the workload, but they're both getting 200 plus touches. That could be really, really good. And then because, you're running the ball that amount of time, you only have so many plays per game per season. So they're just going to pass less. And then that decreases the size of raw volume that they have to split now between Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. So that's the argument why he won't be top 5 this season. But I do love Jackson Smith and Jigba. I have very high hopes for his future. I have really high hopes for him this year. I think that he could have a way better rookie season than I think a lot of people think as the wide receiver 3 in that offense. I wouldn't be surprised if he overtakes Tyler Lockett by like week 7. And we're talking about JSN basically just being the best rookie wide receiver of this whole entire thing. of the whole entire class. But top 5 I feel like is lofty. That's basically it. You want to buy Warren before the season? I'm in on that. In on that for sure. It better be on Sleeper and it better not be best ball. Okay, so I feel like best ball. I don't think we're gonna do best ball, but I don't like Sleeper. But I've had conversations. Russ also wants to do a dynasty league, so I guess I'll announce that here to the people. Since it seems like if you're joining us on Friday, you're a diehard fan, or maybe you just have time, and this is a bad time for other diehard fans. But Russ also wants to do a dynasty league, in the vein of a trade addicts league, but for DLF YouTube viewers and trade show viewers specifically, so that we could do trades within that, and then we can talk about that on the trade show as well. So if you're interested in that, you can hype that up in the chat, and we'll see how it goes. We had those conversations like yesterday, so that was like a very baby idea that we're also considering. Rise above everything. What's up, dude? Are we worried about Burrow's calf strain? Not immediately right now, because this could be like a 4 to 6 week thing, and then that'll take him out of the preseason. But if he's back for week 1 and he plays an entire season, no issues whatsoever. Now, if more news comes out, and this is kind of what I'm waiting on to hear, more news in terms of like if there was an MRI done and it revealed this or that or whatnot, and it turns out to be a bigger strain or a bigger tear than what was initially believed or thought, then that could be an issue, especially for redraft or for 2023 purposes specifically. In Dynasty, not worried about it because it's Dynasty and Joe Burrow is fantastic and he's like 24 years old. So I'm not worried about it from a Dynasty perspective. But for the 2023 season, I'm not worried about it yet, but I am prepared to be worried about it if more news comes out. So, but I think Jamar Chase, I think T. Higgins, I think they'll both be fine. Their ceiling is obviously going to be lower in the weeks that they're going to play with somebody else. Their backup right now is, I think, Trevor Siemian. So that's not good. But it's Jamar Chase and it's T. Higgins. They'll still be fine. But yeah, as of right now, for Joe Burrow specifically, I'm not super worried about it yet. Waiting for more news. Collins got a late rookie draft approaching. Who would I prefer out of Sam Laporta, Marvin Mims, Devon Achane, and Rashee Rice? Of that group, I would take Devon Achane. Upside ceiling of being the starting running back in the Miami Dolphins offense. After that, I would go Sam Laporta, then Rashee Rice, and then Marvin Mims. But Mims and Rice are like back to back. That's like super close. If you prefer Mims over Rice, totally fine with you. If you prefer one or both wide receivers over Laporta, I don't argue with that either as well too. I just think Achane is the best one of this whole entire group. And his ADP is also higher than all of them too. So if you're going based on ADP, getting Achane in this range of rookies is better. Do you think Josh Jacobs sits out games? Does he drop in drafts? I've been of the belief that I don't think Josh Jacobs is sitting at all. Where that belief's come from, I have no idea. I might have just concocted that in my brain and just decided Josh Jacobs is not going to play any games. But I'm not ultimately too worried about it. Will he drop in drafts? Probably, unless we get some sort of news or the same sort of like Saquon Barkley 1 year deal. That's basically the same exact thing as the franchise tag, just not called the franchise tag. But unless we get that sort of news, I do think that he will fall in drafts, and he is probably going to be a major value at that point. Even if he only plays like half the season, just to get credit for the season, so he's not, we're not doing this whole rigmarole again next year, then he's still going to be valuable, I think, in like the 3rd round if he falls that far. 4th round even. Whiskey Traveler, what are you doing with players like DJ Moore and Chris Godwin? Seems like they finish in the wide receiver 20 to 36 range, resulting in their value dropping even further. No one in my league seems interested in them. Yeah. That's the issue with a lot of those wide receivers. And that's why I'm always of trying to recycle receivers in that range. Is I'm looking for the upside, right? Like those guys are in that range because they're going to produce there, and you need receivers who are going to produce there. But they're probably not the best bet for guys if they're like your wide receiver too. And you can include players like Michael Pittman in that list. You can include Hollywood Brown, Terry McLaurin, maybe even Jerry Jeudy if he doesn't necessarily break out, but it's just solid. He would also be in that list. That whole entire tier is really, really flat. And so if you're able to trade down from those guys to other receivers that have lesser value, and you're able to get something on top of that, but their production is the same, that's always what I'm trying to do. If you're trying to trade up, and you might need to overpay to trade up from those guys like DJ Moore in a first and just go get, DK Metcalf. like just being able to do that and giving yourself ceiling and upside is probably a better use of those players than just having them on your team and just having them score as the wide receiver like 22 at the end of the year. So it's a rough place to be. Non-PPR 12-team Superflex, Saquon and 2/3 or Jonathan Taylor. Oh boy. So in a non-PPR league, that takes out the receptions, the points per reception that Saquon is going to have over Jonathan Taylor, because Saquon's probably going to have twice as many receptions than JT, if not potentially like 3 times as many. So you'll still get credit for the receiving yards, and obviously if he scores a touchdown for them on any of those receptions, you just won't get the actual point for the receptions. Is that better than Jonathan Taylor? I think I would take Saquon in this. I think I would take Saquon because JT might have issues too because of Anthony Richardson with the whole mobile quarterback thing. Anthony Richardson taking away goal line work because he can rush or sneak it in. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, that kind of model. JT might lose the touchdowns he was so desperately needed to be the RB1 in 2021. He's not going to have the receiving upside. So he might just be extremely efficient running back with like 8 to 10 touchdowns, not 15 plus like what he had in 2021. And to where Saquon's receiving upside, even in a non-PPR, the receiving upside is just going to be more touches that he's going to be able to have to beat out Jonathan Taylor, and just more opportunities to score more by more yards, more touchdowns. So I'll take Saquon in this one. Nate just traded DJ Moore and a mid 2024 mid second and a 2025 third for Drake London. See, this is that perfect example of how to trade out of the flat, no upside wide receiver range and going up and getting a guy who has ceiling and has upside. Now for 2023, DJ Moore and Drake London could probably score very identically. DJ Moore might honestly outscore Drake London for 2023, but there is upside with Drake London because of the unknown that we haven't seen it yet, but we know that there's potential because of the type of player that he is, the prospect that he was. If the Atlanta Falcons, fire Arthur Smith and they bring in somebody who wants to pass more, they upgrade their quarterback position. There's so much more upside with Drake London as an alpha wide receiver to where his situation can just get so much better than it's better to have than DJ Moore in a second and a third. So perfect example of how to trade out of that whole entire group of wide receivers and going to get somebody of more upside. Nick's doing his first rookie draft in a month, have the suite of the ones. So Bijan 101, that fits your biggest need. Done. 2.01 in a one quarterback league. So you're probably still looking at the A-Chain, Kendre Miller. A-Chain might not be there. Kendre Miller. I haven't looked at one quarterback rookie ADP in like 3 months. Hold on a second. All right. So 2.01. Yeah, you're in the Miller, Mingo, Michael Mayer, Josh Downs, Rashee Rice, Marvin Mims, all those wide receivers. If you can get Kendre Miller there, I would love Kendre Miller at the 2.01. If A-Chain is there, then take A-Chain. Yeah, John says that if you can get Anthony Richardson at 2.01, that's great. ADP wise, at least it says he's going top 10 in one quarterback league still. So I don't expect him to be there, but if you can get him at 2.01, that would be great. 3.01, 301 and 401 that's handcuff range for me. So if you can get like Chase Brown at 3.01, if you can get Tank Bigsby or basically those two guys, I guess are the only guys really going at 3.01 because you're not going to get, I don't think you're getting Spears and I don't think you're getting Roshan Johnson. But if you can get Chase Brown or Tank Bigsby at the 3.01, then that would be fantastic. Chase Brown actually in our ADP is 3.01. So hopefully that works out for you. 4.01, again, another handcuff. You could look at Zach Evans, Sean Tucker, Evan Hull, Dwayne McBride. Those are the four main handcuffs that I like at the 4.01. Luke Schoonmaker is also in that range as an interesting upside tight end. He's injured right now and hasn't had a lot of actual training time with the Cowboys in that offense, but he was a second-round pick for the Cowboys. Could be really interesting as well that late. You have other upside guys like Xavier Hutchinson is down in there. Tucker Kraft, another tight end too. Fourth round is really take your upside shot. I would just don't take a quarterback. And probably, honestly, you probably shouldn't take a wide receiver either. I'd be looking at the running back in the tight end position at 4.01. So hopefully that helped, Nick. Bijan 101 is done. See if you can get like Kendra Miller at 2.01. 3.01 is Chase Brown. 4.01 is a handcuff running back or Luke Schoonmaker. Ideal draft for you. Josh thinks that a DLF Dynasty League would be cool. Yeah, so we're okay. One comment. So we got hype for it. I'm going to consider that hype. So yeah, we'll see if we can work on it. The startup draft will have to be pretty quick because if we get booted up here in the next few days, and then we'll have all of August to go through the startup draft. But yeah, sounds like we'll do it. I think we'll do it. And we'll definitely put it out. Like you're a member, so it'll be thrown in the Discord. We'll put in the members only post as well too on the YouTube side. So if you're in and around the YouTube channel, you should hear about it for sure whenever we get that actually booted up. So, but yeah, I think this is where we're going to call it. I don't see any more comments unless we have another buzzer beater comment or anything like that. John, you've been doing a fantastic job as always answering questions for me. So thank you so much. But yeah, I appreciate you guys hanging out in here. John, you hit me with one of these. With Cook likely going to the Jets, would you rather have Ty Chandler over Michael Carter? I probably would have rather had Ty Chandler over Michael Carter without Dalvin Cook going to the Jets. I'm not a Michael Carter fan. I don't think he's that good, and he's not that good of a handcuff. Izzy's a better handcuff to have on the Jets than Michael Carter. I think Zonovan Knight was a better handcuff to have than Michael Carter too. So I would take Ty Chandler over Michael Carter, especially if Cook goes there. Then that just further solidifies it. But yeah. But so with that, appreciate you guys hanging out here on this Friday as well. Glad that Justin was able to join us for this one. And based on what he said, it seems like he's going to try and join us next week as well. So I appreciate all y'all joining us on Friday. Have an amazing weekend. And it's going to be August next time we talk. We're going to be like into preseason time. You know, the Hall of Fame game is going to be like right there, if not having already played. I don't know what the dates are for that. But we're in it now, dude. It's August. NFL drafts or NFL season is right around the corner. I'm so excited, and I hope you guys are too. But yeah, have an amazing weekend. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. We will catch y'all